Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another discussion about the games that I would love to make, but I just really don't have the ability to make them, right? So this is the fourth video in the series, I believe, and, you know, I think it's time we talk about the elephant in the room. One of the very fun games, and the thing that gonna happen here is I'm gonna like ramble on about nothing for like a minute of this first video because YouTube has this thing where if they pick up anything like swears or other stuff like that within like the first minute, or I think it's 30 seconds, I don't remember the exact time, I just know like a minute is good, but they'll just automatically demonetize your video. So let's just get around that by talking about nothing, right? We got about 5 more seconds here. And once that's done, we can then begin talking about adult games, because fun is important. So today's subject is going to be adult games, games that have lewd material in them. And I'm not going to be talking about things very in-depth just because still I want this video to be monetized maybe. So we're going to be taking kind of like a PG-13 approach to this. And hopefully it's not going to, cause a bunch of issues on the YouTube end. But anyway, yeah. So let's go on to the first slide here. Here we go. So the introduction here. So the adult games are, things that involve not safe for work, 18 plus situations. You know exactly what I'm talking about, right? I won't be specific because, like I said, YouTube will demonetize me if I get into the specifics, right? But I'm talking about, those visual novels we all know. Things like, what is it called? Subverse, that game, like the Hoonie Pop and the Hoonie Cam Studio stuff, those games, and the countless other ones that are like, the side-scrolling ones with, when your character's defeated, there's a scene that happens, right? You know what I'm talking about. But with these adult games, there's a lot of them out there, right? I'm sure if we were to be able to like play them like on streams or on YouTube, we would have countless hours, countless days, or even years of entertainment that we could go through, right? However, most of them end up being pretty meh, right? They're not really something that you enjoy a whole bunch, except for the artwork, right? Because most of them fall into 3 categories, right? One of 3 categories. You have the ones that have bad gameplay, and they have decent adult scenes. And for these, I'm talking things like, but for me, personally, this is just opinion, right? So I would say this would be things like Subverse, where they have really good 3D like adult scenes, but the gameplay is pretty basic. I think it's, if I remember correctly, there's 2 different kinds of like the gameplay here, right? You have like a little space flight thing where you attack other ships and stuff like that, kind of like a Asteroid, the old Asteroid game, and then the other part is a like strategic combat kind of thing, right? But you don't actually like control the characters directly, you just give them orders, essentially, is that thing, right? And then we have good gameplay, but bad adult scenes. For me, this would be things like the side-scrollers where, you have a basic game that functions like a Metroidvania type one, right? And then when, the adult scene happens, it's either just a pixelated animation on the screen because it's a pixel game, or they just have like a random picture, and it's like, okay, whatever, right? And the last thing that a game could be is just everything being mediocre. The story's okay, the gameplay is what you expect, the scenes are okay. And I think I would put visual novels in this category of everything being mediocre, because you have the gameplay, which might not be that engaging, but the story is really engaging in some of them. Some of the ones actually have a decent story, that is. There are some out there that are just like brain rot things, but setting that aside. And then the adult scenes for them are just, with visual novels, it's either, just basic still pictures that change subtly when you navigate through the dialogue. Or some of them are coming out with some semi-interactive like animations where you can like go forward and back to like change the speed or the position kind of thing. But it's just really basic, right? So one thing or the other usually ends up becoming an afterthought. Either the gameplay is, very bad because they wanted to focus on the adult scenes of things, or the adult scenes are really good, but the gameplay is like, So, yeah, or like the gameplay is just super basic, like a point and click. You know what I'm saying? There leaves a lot to be desired, right? So, gotta quit clicking off the damn thing so I can just use my keys. But anyway, let's talk about the problems that current adult games have, right? So a lot of games use generic, realistic type 3D models. They're just really meh. There's so many of them out there. If you just go on Steam and look at like adult games, right, you're gonna find hundreds of those exact games that look all the same. They're like the 3D characters that, just look weirdly realistic, but still kind of not, but still just like in that weird, like, meh. Like they don't stand out. So I would say go for like something anime-like, or go for like a still video gamey realism. And again, this is just my personal preference on that matter, right? Maybe there are some people out there who really dig that 3D model type, but I digress. So you also aren't able to really customize your characters very much. Like, you're just thrown into this character who you are, playing as. You can't customize the, characters that maybe you're partying with or anything like that. So you don't really have much customizability. You're just kind of forced into this, scenario and not able to, do much, right? When it comes to the scenes that are the adult scenes, they're usually short. They don't really loop. Or if they do loop, they're not necessarily interactive scenes, so it's just something you watch and then you click to continue, and it's like, whatever. And then there's also not much player freedom in what you're, allowed to do in an adult game, because it's 90% of the time you're on a rail. You're just taking a path that is designed for you and not really given much to work with, right? Like, in a visual novel, you can have some choices, but it's always going to go down one particular path. Or if you're doing a Metroidvania, you're stuck on that, 2D side-scrolling plane, right? It's just kind of, out there. Now, oops. What's happening here? Is it skipping, like... Okay, fine. I'll click the dang button. Apparently it doesn't like my arrow keys, whatever. I don't know why today it decided to not do this. So, what do you do? Well, you want to start by focusing on the gameplay of the game portion. Think of something like making an RPG like Elder Scrolls, for example, and get it to that level of quality, right? Get like a very good game that's not even adult content related. And then you add the adult content. However, you want to make sure it's all smooth and not something from like an afterthought. Like, you don't want to have your gameplay be amazing and then just add adult stuff into it and it's like, oh, okay, well, whatever. It's got adult stuff in it now, we can say it's an adult game, The key thing is you want to have it where going from the gameplay scenes to the adult scenes, it should be smooth like butter. And you want to give the player control over the scenes, things like changing speed, positions, making sure that it loops so the player can enjoy it at their own pace. The ideal thing would be to give them a free camera so that they can rotate the camera around the characters to, get the specific angle or whatnot that they want to see. right? Give the user the ability to do what they want. Give them freedom, right? So, in my ideal game, I really want you to just think of the Elder Scrolls with a bunch of adult mods installed, right? You know how all those are. I'm sure if you're watching this video, you've at least installed one naughty mod on Elder Scrolls, right? But think about how janky those mods are, right? If you had any animation mods that you put into Skyrim, not even lewd ones, you'll know how like janky it is for them to go from, you know, the normal standing and they just like all of a sudden, boom, like snap into place and then move around in the animation that they're supposed to be moving into, right? So that's the problem with modding, because you don't have the ability to really fill that gap between the scenes, right? There's no like easy way to do that, other than, you know, snapping the characters where they need to go in the proper distance from each other, and then beginning your scene, right? You know, that just kind of sucks there. But yeah, ideally, my ideal adult game is like an RPG game where you can customize your character, have them be, you know, male, female, whatever you want it to be, you know, and then just set them out in the world, right? They can choose their own path, do what they want, you know. So now let's talk about the player experience, okay? So we all have our likes and dislikes. So we want to let the player choose what they want to see and not see, right? Because the player should have the experience they want to see. And it would also allow for unique playthroughs, right? Like, you could have them disable adult content entirely from the game and just play a normal RPG kind of game, right? Or you could have them say, okay, I want to disable, you know, this particular fetish. And after that's disabled, they would no longer see it. Anything like that, right? You know, there's that mod in like Skyrim. I don't remember what it's called exactly, but like when you die, you don't die. They just like capture you and take you to like a prison or something like that. You could have them. You could have it be like, yeah, I don't want to see these scenes when that happens. Or you'd be like, yeah, I want to see these scenes. I want it to be like different and unique, right? You know, you could play a character that, you know, wants to have group scenes, or a character that doesn't want to have group scenes, right? They have like some morals and are like, I will only be with one person at a time, you know, like have them be like faithful to like a wife, or require them to get married before they do anything, stuff like that, right? Make it realistic, just not an art style, right? Like, make it be a world in which stuff happens, right? Because think of all of the like RPG games that you've played where there's been nothing lewd, right? There's like no adult content, no characters really doing anything inappropriate. It just feels odd, right? That's like one of the things that, you know, I think the Elder Scrolls kind of had wrong with it in like Skyrim and maybe even Oblivion. I know Morrowind had strip clubs. I remember that much because they used to have they would have the Khajiits dancing basically without clothing on in them, you know, and the Khajiits and Argonians were also used as slaves there. And you even had the book, The Lusty Argonian Maid, in Morrowind, which got ported over basically to Oblivion and Skyrim. And honestly, that's the only thing that I remember in the games of Oblivion and Skyrim being a little bit lewd, which is just basically a fan fiction, right? You know? So it's just weird when games don't have that adult side to them, even though it's a open world game that definitely should. So games like Grand Theft Auto or Cyberpunk, where they have like strip clubs and stuff like that that has these adult situations in them, it makes sense that they exist. It makes the world feel more real. At least in my opinion. You know, not everyone wants to see that stuff all the time, which is why I say, you know, give them the player experience. Say you're playing Grand Theft Auto, and you don't want to have any of the player or the adult experiences. You can disable that, and it'll just seal off the strip club so you can't enter it, right? Simple as that. Different stuff for different folks, they say. So my adult game, and I've already kind of touched on this a little bit, the one that I want to make is basically just Skyrim plus mods, just less jank, right? If there's a mod for it, add it to the game. Yes, even that mod you're thinking of right now, add it into the game. Yep. Let the player pursue consensual relationships, getting married, you know, having a, you know, girlfriend, boyfriend, what have you, just stuff like that. Even promiscuous stuff, you know, whatever, as long as, you know, the characters consent. And then also have that, like I said, capture and defeat system. You could also have toys in the world so that your character could go solo or use them on other NPCs, stuff like that, yes. You know, and also just the NPCs in general should have, you know, some sort of realism to them where, you know, when you're in Skyrim breaking into a house, sometimes maybe you stumble upon two characters that are in bed getting it on, right? Because night, after all, and what do married couples with nothing really to do at night, right? Get it on. Just like real people in real life. And there should also be a good mix of normal clothing and armor and more adult stuff, you know? I think it's fun to choose the game to be played the way you want it to do, right? Maybe you want to have like this heavily armored character who, you know, goes around conquering stuff, but maybe you just want a cute character in bikini armor or something, right? Maybe you want to do something really weird where they're like full plate armor up top, bikini armor down bottom, right? Or vice versa, you know, something crazy like that. Whatever you want to do. But you could also have stuff like lingerie, swimwear, and just stuff like that for, you know, more adult stuff to, you know, really set the mood and stuff like that. You know, everything out there should just be great. And like I had touched on with the Skyrim mods and stuff like that, as some of you might be aware, there are those like Lover's Lab and stuff like that have all this adult mod content where you can, you know, add in animations and stuff like that. There's like different animations and you can change the like poses and stuff like that and choose when your characters do the climax and all that kind of stuff, right? And that should be in the game too, you know. You want them to be able to do the deed the way you want it to do. Change up the positions, change up the angle, all that. And the free camera that, you know, comes with the Skyrim and other Fallout and Bethesda games. Just really great. And I know I'm talking about the Elder Scrolls and Fallout games a lot, because they just fit this particular subject here, right? Because they have a lot of mods for it, right? And a lot of the mods are... Sorry, I just got stunlocked trying to say interesting and entertaining at the same time. But they are entertaining? Jesus Christ. Entertaining and interesting, right? And there's a variety of them. You can basically do whatever you want in the game. It's crazy. But the downside is, like I said, the animations and how you get into the scenes, just jank. And it's also a pain having to mod things in and get them to work, because sometimes they'll work, sometimes they won't, and you don't know exactly why, and it just sucks, right? I think we've all, regardless of if we installed adult content or not, know how much of a struggle it is to go through the mods, be like, oh, this seems like a cool mod, add that. You know, spend like a day just getting the mods ready, and then you play the game, for maybe one day, and then you're like, okay, well, this mod doesn't work, this one doesn't work, and I'm just kind of like, meh, I'm bored, not really into it, right? You know? Stuff like that. Now, let's move on and talk about online. Now, this is something that's definitely going to be controversial. It's something that is going to be a pain to implement. And I can see why basically no game has really done this, except for a couple of them that currently exist. Now, I think it would be cool to make an online game, like an MMO, for example, where players can interact with each other. Like an MMO VR chat, for example, right? And players could tweak their settings to allow their character to be treated however they want, like requiring consent for anything that's going to happen to them in an adult situation, right? Now, obviously, I think all of us know we were playing mature rated games when we were under the age of 18, right? I don't think there's a person among us, unless you were raised in a very strict household and did not go over to a friend's house ever, who has not played a game above our age level, right? Shit, I remember being 10 years old playing mature rated games, right? So you have to have some way to make sure that kids are not going to be in the game if you're going to have adult situations. And that is the tricky part, right? Because first of all, if you do have a kid getting involved in that stuff, their parents are going to be very upset if they find out about it, and going to want to take legal action against you for allowing their child to get into it. Next, the people who interact with that child, well, that's going to be really awkward to find out you were, ERPing with someone under the age, right? So it's really obvious why these kind of games are not made online adult games, because there's no good way to really filter that out. So it would 100% have to require some sort of like subscription or like a driver's license, stuff like that, to confirm that the person is an adult. And that's just why single player is easier, right? But you do have things like VR chat where there are lobbies and stuff with adult things going on. I don't really know how all that works. I don't have VR chat because I don't really use VR at the moment. But I know that it happens because the internet is a place that I exist on, and I think that stuff's fascinating, right? So I don't know if they just use private lobbies, or if there's like certain places that are just dedicated to sharing the certain lobby codes to get into it. If that's how it works, I don't really, like I said, know. But yeah, VR chat as a whole is not an adult thing. So VR chat kind of has this, we're not responsible for what happens in the worlds. They just have, the character models and other stuff hosted that they can use. Well, I don't know. How does that work? Does VR chat host the models and then you can like upload a model to them and then have your model there? And then you can share the model with other people. They also have like worlds other players can build and do that. Like, VR chat is a great game in terms of stuff to like exist in, right? It's cool. I think it's a really neat game. I just would never play it because I don't really like VR at its current state. If we get full dive at VR, you're never going to see me outside of the full dive VR, but until we no longer just have screens against our eyes, I probably won't be doing much VR, at least until the headsets become lighter and easier to use and all that good jazz. But yeah. Is there anything else in this presentation? There is not. Okay. This one's kind of a shorter one because there's a whole lot that I can't necessarily talk about without YouTube being like, hey, so we're gonna have to say you can't monetize this video, right? And, well, shoot. But that's just kind of how it goes. I do wish that we lived in a world where adult things were not as shied away from, you know? It'd be really nice and liberating. Sure, you still had to filter out the kids, but, you know, it's just dumb that you can't, like, monetize most things if they're adult content, right? So you can still kind of have them, but then advertisers are like, even if their ads aren't being shown on that particular video or whatever, they're still like, excuse me, this video exists on your website, and I do not want it to exist, so I'm going to pull my funding from other videos. Stupid. It's pretentious, and advertisers need to get these sticks out of their butts and start advertising on websites that allow adult content, right? It's great. You know, I think it's a real shame missing out on business opportunities, because who has more disposable income than someone who is throwing money at an e-girl online, right? Just crazy that they're missing out on these opportunities of advertising on adult websites because they're being prudes. I know I went on a rant there, sorry. But yeah, so the game that I want to make is just lovely. Just, I want it to be a fun game to play, right? That's the basic thing. I want it to be fun, and I also want it to just have adult situations you can stumble upon, right? I don't want the focus to be the adult situations. I don't want the gameplay to be bad. I want you to be able to choose what you want to do, right? I don't want you to get forced into having adult situations in the game. I want you to be able to basically choose when or where you have them, right? Just like in real life, you know? And I think that is the important thing when it comes to adult games. You know, there needs to be this thing in adult games where you're playing the game and you're having fun, right? But when you climax, you still want to play the game afterwards, right? Because if you've already, why would you want to continue playing the game and going through the adult scenes, you know? You kind of get over it after that, right? But if the adult scenes aren't, you know, required or the focus or anything like that, like think of Skyrim, you can go, all right, I'm just going to go explore this cavern. Don't have to worry about any adult stuff unless I want it to happen. And you go from there. And I think that's what a lot of adult games are lacking. They're lacking the pick up and play mechanic, right? Because you aren't always in the mood for an adult game, right? It's one of those things where it's like, do I really want to, you know, see naked people right now? I wonder if that is going to get me demonetized, because I just said that word. Who knows? We'll see. You know? I'll probably save the, I'll probably rant about the fact that this video got demonetized in the next video because I just said one word there, right? But anyway, I think it's important to summarize my thoughts here. I think it's important to give the player something to do that is not adult content, so that they can have fun and do other things whenever they want, right? They shouldn't have to engage in that stuff if they don't want to. But it should be there, and it should be well done enough that it's one of the favorite games to ever exist ever, right? Because I want you to think. Just close your eyes and imagine all the games you've played your favorite games that you were like, wow, this game revolutionized the genre. This game is one of the greatest games of all times. And now, how many of the games that you just thought of were adult games? How many adult games would you be like, oh man, I'm really feeling nostalgic to go play this one game again after I've already beaten it and experienced it? Or are you just like, I already played it, I'll just play something new, right? Sure, there might be some that you like the story of, but did you like the gameplay? Did you like the scenes? Was it a game that you want to continually go back to? Or is it a game you just got a little nostalgic for and were like, I kind of want to give it a try. And then after you play it for a little while, you're like, okay, I remember this now, and you just set it aside. Is it a game you would replay over and over and over again? Like the Elder Scrolls series, where you'll do different playthroughs or different play styles and stuff like that. I'm willing to say that I'm pretty sure none of us thought of any adult games just now that really reached into our soul and were like, yeah, I really want to go play that game right now, because that's how much I remember it. Sure, I have a fondness for some of the adult games that I've played. Some games that I had fun playing. Some games that I could be like, yeah, I'll go play that for a little while. But are the games, are they really games that I would play a lot more? Would I want to go back and do an entire playthrough of them? Not really. I just spent a couple of days here, just recently, going through a lot of the games that I've played, all the way from the NES up to current gen consoles, getting a list of them, of the games that I want to play again. And I'll tell you, there's not really one adult game in that entire list. There's games that have, adult themes, but nothing that we're talking about right now. I've played a lot of adult games in my time, but none of them have really left a lasting impression. I might catch myself thinking about one or two of them sometimes, randomly, but not to the extent that I think of Morrowind, for example. Easily one of my favorite games of all time. Just like Conker's Bad Fur Day. I can basically remember every single plot point for those two games because they were just so fun and amazing. And I enjoyed the hell out of them. But when it comes to adult games, I might just remember a specific scene or a specific character. And other than that, I don't remember anything. And that is what my adult game would aim to change, by having it be not just a game that has adult content in it, but a game that grips you in with its story, that grips you in with its gameplay, and that when you're in the mood for its adult content, it is there for you, and it is beautiful. Thank you, everyone, for listening to me today. Ramble on about this adult game thing. I know not everyone enjoys adult games, but I do. And it's one of the games that I would love to make. The problem on my end is just that, well, adult content is kind of expensive to make because there's not a whole lot of pre-built assets, and if they are, it's those stupid, janky, realistic 3D models, right? But if I were to make one, with my current ability and the things that I'm able to do, it would probably be just a Metroidvania type that has, you know, the scenes after you get defeated or something like that. Or like after you kill a boss, maybe you conquer them in that way. But yeah, getting those animations of unique characters, it breaks the bank a little bit. I think I talked to an artist once to think about doing so, and I think I came up with like, to get all the animations for just the character moving and, you know, doing the usual Metroidvania things, not even any scenes or anything like that. It was going to cost like $5,000 just to get all the animations from running to jumping to idling to attacking, stuff like that. It was going to cost like $5,000 for all the stuff that it was going to take. And I don't know if I was ready to invest that amount. That game has been put on the back burner. It's still an idea that I would love to make, but not really something that I can do right now. Maybe if I make another game that's a hot seller, that's a good game, I can make it. But until then, I don't know. But the adult scenes themselves are going to be so much more money because they're going to be a lot more detailed. And yeah, who can say? But thank you all for watching and listening. I am Plagen and I'm going to say this now because I want to, because we probably got demonetized, so I got to milk it for a little bit. Make sure to like and subscribe, comment and reply. Do all that stuff to raise the engagement on the video. All that good jazz. Alright folks, that's all for today. Next time, I don't know what we're going to be talking about because, I'm going to be honest, I kind of don't know what other game type I want to list out here. That's unique. That's not a RPG or a mech game or, you know, that kind of stuff. But we'll see. We'll see. But until then, bye-bye for now.